Hello, everyone. Welcome to Poly's first user group meeting. I'm Abhishek, the co-founder and CEO of Elucidata. And on behalf of my entire team, I want to thank you for taking time out and joining us today. These are trying times. We hope and wish that you and your loved ones are doing well. Now, for the audience in this room, drug hunters and scientists, the challenges are peculiar. We have to collectively, as a scientific community, rise up to meet the challenges that this global pandemic has posed in front of us. Elucidata has been lucky to be part of the discovery journey of at least 3 dozen biotech and pharma companies over the last many years. And today, this user group meeting is a celebration of all those drug hunters and scientists who work tirelessly to bring therapies to patients and their families. This is also an opportunity for us to share our story as to how we are doing our best to make your lives just a tad simpler. Today, I'll give you a preview of all the exciting talks that are lined up from our colleagues from within Elucidata and also our partners and users of Poly. They'll share their stories with you in an exciting lineup of presentations for today. And just to set the context for the rest of the evening, we believe we are on a collaborative journey in partnerships with more than 3 dozen biotech and pharma companies over the last years to reimagine the future of drug discovery. Our industry is in the midst of a transition. And in many ways, the urgency brought on by the global pandemic has accelerated the future. There's one unmistakable trend, and that is the reliance on a data-centric discovery paradigm. Now, there are two specific bets that we are making. One is that it will not be just the volume of data that you'll have to worry about in future. And that's even true today. The velocity of the data, the veracity of the data, the variety of the data, and finally, the value of the data. That will be very critical to take care of, to handle for the entire value chain of discovery, all the way from target ID to designing clinical trials. And the second bet that we're taking is the teams of these competitive life sciences companies will look very different. Let's take an example. A computational biologist today, her job spans the whole spectrum of fixing the printer all the way to making an ML model. We believe in the future, a competitive life sciences company will have to make hiring decisions to reflect the nuances and the expertise involved in every specific way. For example, software engineering, cloud engineering, data engineering, bioinformatics expertise, and ML model expertise. All of them will be separate roles in these teams if they were to take advantage of the data that they have disposal of. And this team will also be using a very different set of applications as compared to today. Now, this is the future that we want to imagine. This is the future we want to create with you. Again, if we were to dig deeper into this theme, it's hard to dispute, and we have all been beneficiaries of this. The breakthroughs in NGS and mass spec technologies has enabled availability of data at a scale that was just not possible to imagine just a few years back, right? Now, this has not quite translated into better and cheaper and faster drugs for patients and their families. And this trend has its own name, Eroom's law, which is Moore's law spelled backwards. Now, as collectively we try to deliberate how to reconcile these two trends, Elucidata has a very specific worldview on this, in this gap. And we believe that the data that is available, specifically molecular data, is not quite usable in your hands because more than 80% of that is structured or semi-structured to begin with. So it takes hours and days and weeks of wrangling before you can push it through any simple or complicated algorithm at all. Therefore, the value of this data remains locked. And we want to change that. We are committed to solving this problem to make the data that is available also is usable in your hands. And as the volume of data has grown exponentially and that is available to us, so has the excitement around AI and ML-based approaches. It's hard to dispute the promise of ML and AI approaches across the entire value chain of of R&D, all the way from target identification, design of clinical trials, and everything in between. At Elucidata, we are trying to look beyond this initial excitement around ML and take our role to help realize the promise of AI very seriously. We have a more nuanced and clear view and what are the challenges to make sure enterprise level AI and ML approaches will succeed in even small biotech companies as well as large pharma companies. What we do know is that even in other industries, there are only a handful of examples of successful enterprise AI stories like AlphaGo or ImageNet, which required an army of highly trained, qualified engineers, hundreds and thousands of them. The reality is, a lot of small companies, and even big pharma companies for that matter, will not have access to that. So, how do we overcome this challenge to be able to realize the promise of ML for drug discovery? So, if we believe in the opportunity and the promise of ML, what are the challenges that lies ahead of us? Our experience, and I'm sure a lot of would nod and agree and it would resonate with you, is that the available data, as we have argued earlier, is not structured. It's not structured and it's not in a ready-to-use form. And we do not need to reinvent language here to talk about this problem. FAIR guidelines, as described in a number of papers from many different stakeholders, captures it really well. The reality is biomedical data is unfair. That is true for most of the publicly available resources. It's even more true for proprietary data generated in your lab just last week across smaller biotech companies and even large pharma. Simply put, research groups, both large and small, have been closed off to the potential of ML in our industry, largely because of data management practices. As I said earlier, we argue more than 80% of this data within your organization and outside is unstructured or semi-structured. Public data is freely available most of the times, but it's not ready to use. It's not in ready to use form. And a lot of our user presentations today will stress on that theme. Similarly, proprietary data, again, remains sequestered in disparate cloud storage folders and network drives and on different teams in silos, which again keeps the value of it locked. As smaller biotech companies and even large pharma companies move towards a more data-driven discovery paradigm, it is obvious that ML and AI-based approaches will take center stage. Now, most of the conversation around ML has been and AI-based approaches has been dominated by just the ML and AI part. But the reality is that there's a whole ecosystem and infrastructure, if you will, that needs to be in place for those initiatives to be successful. And unsurprisingly, there are a lot of there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done in just getting the data ready before it can be fed into your ML model. And again, Vas, the CEO of Novartis, he has been very vocal and articulate about these challenges. One of the quotes really hits on the head of the nail, where their team has arguably spent years before the data can be cleaned up and to be pushed through any ML-based pipeline. And a lot of smaller biotech companies cannot even afford that kind of investment in the resources to curate the data. This has been our exclusive and sole focus. As highlighted in this schematic drawing, where the boxes in purple is what Elucidata is focused on. That is what drives our core IP. We want to curate data, biomedical molecular data at scale so that it can be in a ready-to-use form to feed into your ML workflows or any analytical workflows that you might be using to address a wide variety of questions, including patient segmentation, lead optimization, designing better process development protocols, and so on and so forth. Our goal at Elucidata is to enable this lab of the future. And there are three distinct pillars to our approach. One is the creation of Omics Atlas. This would be the largest atlas of its kind, which would include clean, curated multi-omics data from many different repositories in one single place. The second pillar will be the users who we are catering to. And there are two distinct personas that Poly is committed to supporting. One is a bioinformatics scientist, and second is a bench scientist, a biologist or chemist. The third pillar of our approach is having an outstanding world-class support team for our users. We believe that is critical for their success and therefore our success. We want to reimagine again the relationship between a vendor and a customer and make that more into a collaboration. We cannot stress enough as to how critical that is for your success and ours. And as I promised at the top of my meeting, this short presentation was a brief preview of what is to come. I want to give a particular shout out to three presentations that are coming up in the next few sessions. One by SP, who is the co-founder and CTO of the company, Chef, who will be taking us through Data Lake, and Surbi, who is a product manager at Elucidata, to again take a deeper look into Poly and what it has to offer to our users. In addition, we'll also hear a bunch from our customers, our early adopters, people who are most critical and they have bought into the worldview that we have. And they have joined us on this journey to create this future R&D lab. These stories are again a testament to our enduring commitment to scientific research and customer success, and eventually to bring therapies to patients with unmet need. Finally, I'll leave you with some numbers. Last 5 years have been incredibly fun and satisfying, and we want to thank you for joining us on this collaborative journey as we try to reimagine the future of drug discovery. These are early days. We've had a lot of fun. We have created a lot of value, and a lot more has to be done. Again, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you have an incredibly fun and productive user group meeting. Thanks for joining us. I'll be happy to take your questions.